Well, I was listening to a little bit of hype music just there because we are, in fact, ready for this. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Calgary-Shaw, to the beautiful community of Legacy. And here we are in Treaty 7 territory, about to kick off a by-election that will change the course of Alberta politics. And I could not be more excited. Are you excited?
Tremendously.
We got some big news this week, and the Calgary-Shaw by-election has finally been called. And I am so thrilled to be standing next to our not brand new, because we nominated him a while ago, our wonderful candidate, Kyle Campbell. Now, I got to tell you that this isn't about me, this is about Kyle, this is about the tremendous volunteers behind us. They've been knocking on doors, they've been meeting neighbors, they've knocked on, do you have any idea, Kyle, how many thousands of doors yet?
Are we supposed to be counting?
We are supposed to be, that is very important. He's a first-time candidate. Counting is very important. This is all about data. But we've knocked on thousands of doors already in this neighborhood to incredible positive feeling. And it's not about me, it's about Kyle, but I got to tell you, I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling like this by-election is an incredible opportunity for the people of Calgary-Shaw. A lot of folks don't know what a by-election is, and why would they? Who follows politics that closely? But the by-election is not going to change the government. Sadly, Danielle Smith will still be the premier after the by-election. But that means that the people of Calgary-Shaw have an incredible opportunity. They're the first Albertans in over a year to be able to send a message to Danielle Smith, to be able to tell this government that it is not focused on the right priorities of Albertans, that in wasting our time and money with distractions and meaningless culture wars, and especially with focusing on a separatist referendum that could tear our country apart, that'll cost us probably about $200 million. They need to be able to send her that message, that Albertans deserve a better government than this, that Albertans deserve a government that is focused on their priorities. Affordability, public health care, public education, jobs, and a united Canada. And everywhere I go, corner to corner in this province, and especially in neighborhoods like Legacy here in Calgary-Shaw, full of young families, Albertans tell me the same things. They're really worried about the cost of living. They don't think that living in Calgary and going to work every day means you should be scared when you get to the till at the grocery store. That you should be telling your kids that you can't afford grapes this week. Cost of living crisis is hitting us all. Albertans are worried about jobs now and for their kids and for their grandkids. They're worried about the economy and the future. They're worried about finding a family doctor. They're worried about emergency rooms being there when they need them. They're worried about overcrowded classrooms and whether their kids will get the support they need at school. And in neighborhoods like this, they don't even have the luxury to worry about overcrowded classrooms because schools in these neighborhoods are so far away because physically and in time, because the UCP is not focused on the needs of a growing province. But no Albertan is asking us to waste $200 million on a separatist referendum, or privatizing health care, or gerrymandering our electoral maps in order to rig the next election. And the people of South Calgary in particular have been telling us that they are tired of being taken for granted by the UCP. They're tired of the UCP thinking they'll just vote for any old candidate down here that will never do anything for these neighborhoods. So Danielle Smith's had a great summer. She's been on vacation. She's been talking about separation. But what she hasn't been doing is lifting a finger either to help the Remain movement or to be focused on the needs of voters like here in Calgary-Shaw. Kyle Campbell, on the other hand, has spent his summer talking to neighbors in every neighborhood in this city, and I really want to take a moment to reintroduce Kyle Campbell to you all. Kyle's a finance professional. He's a dad. He's the former president of the Somerset Residents Association. He's raising his family with his wonderful wife here in Calgary-Shaw and raising those two young boys who are a bit of a handful. I saw some dirt biking pictures that frankly scared me a little bit.
We're all scared.
But But in addition to all of that, in addition to having a busy life like we all do with work and with family, Kyle also gives back. And he gives service in deep places rooted here in South Calgary. Like many Albertans, excuse me, Kyle has not always had an easy life, and he's going to tell you a little bit about that. Whoa! We're getting some more music. There we go. Like many Albertans, Kyle has not always had an easy life, and he's going to tell you a little bit about that. But what I find inspiring about him is that he takes those adversities and uses them as opportunities to show up for his family, to show up for his community. That's the kind of person he is. Now he's stepping up again, and that is exactly the kind of person we need to have in the Alberta legislature. So I'm thrilled to reintroduce you all to the next MLA for Calgary-Shaw, Kyle Campbell.
Well, thank you, Nahed, and thank you to everyone for joining us here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kyle Campbell. I'm a husband, a coach, a dad, a volunteer, and a proud resident of Calgary-Shaw. And my wife and I are raising our two boys here in this community. This is our neighborhood. These are our neighbors. This is our home. And that's why I'm honored to stand before you today as the Alberta NDP candidate for Calgary-Shaw. 3 years ago, my life changed. I was sitting in a hospital room when a doctor told me that I had stage 4 cancer. In that moment, all I could think about was my wife and my two boys. I thought about whether they would be okay. I thought about whether I would be okay as well. And I thought about whether the healthcare system would be there for us when we needed it. I was incredibly fortunate to have amazing care from Alberta's healthcare professionals, the doctors, the nurses, and other practitioners. But I also saw firsthand how strained our system has become. Even while dealing with a serious infection, I spent many hours in a waiting room. And I remember thinking that no family should have to worry about whether the healthcare system will be there when they need it. That experience changed me. It reminded me how important it is to have the government focus on things that actually matter in people's lives. Because these issues are not abstract. They matter. They affect real families. They affect my family, and they affect yours. When I talk to people across Calgary-Shaw, I hear the same concerns over and over again. People are worried about the rising costs of living. They're worried about access to healthcare. They're worried about their children's futures. They're working hard, trying to save money, and still feeling like they're falling behind. My family feels it too. From the cost of groceries, to insurance, to raising two boys, life is getting more expensive. People want practical solutions. They want a government focused on lowering costs, fixing healthcare, strengthening education, and building a strong relationship and future of Alberta within Canada. They want leadership that is focused on them. And that is why I am running. Not because I'm a politician. I assure you, I am not. I'm running.
You are now.
Oh, it's official. I'm running because I care about this community. I'm running because I've experienced firsthand what's at stake when the systems of this province don't work the way they should. I'm running because Calgary-Shaw deserves a strong voice in the legislature. Calgary-Shaw deserves a voice that listens, that shows up, and a voice that will work every day to make life better for the people that call this community home. I'm ready to earn the trust of voters, I'm ready to knock on doors, and I'm ready to get to work for Calgary-Shaw. Thank you.
All right. And we are ready for this. Thanks so much, Kyle. I think everyone can see why I'm so proud to have candidates the quality of Kyle Campbell stepping up to carry the Alberta NDP banner across the province, but especially right here in Calgary-Shaw. Kyle's story is a story of courage, it's a story of resilience, but most important, it's a story of service. Kyle's chosen to step up, he's chosen to serve, and he's chosen to fight for a better future for the community he calls home. So the UCP has, in fact, taken South Calgary for granted. The population of Calgary has increased enormously in the 7 years that the UCP has been in power, and infrastructure has not kept up. While the NDP in 4 years built or modernized over 200 schools, the UCP over 7 has built or modernized maybe 70. Neighborhoods like Legacy here need places for children to grow, to learn, and places for families to be able to be together. And the UCP has not focused on that kind of infrastructure. They haven't focused on the nuts and bolts of governing. They spend their time trying to score political points. They spend their time engaging us in ridiculous and meaningless culture wars. Instead of building schools, they're fighting about what flags should be flown at schools and what day the national anthem should be played. Instead of fixing healthcare and giving people access to family doctors and reducing emergency room wait times, they have turned one healthcare system into 21 separate organizations. They've increased the cost of administration enormously while lining the pockets of UCP donors through their endless corruption scandals. And that is not what the people of Calgary-Shaw need. I've been on the doors with Kyle. We've talked to people in this community, and they want simple things. They want assurance that there is a better economy coming, that there's jobs for themselves, for their kids and their grandkids. They want a public healthcare system that works for themselves, for their kids, for their parents. They want schools. They want the ability to reduce the size of classrooms. They want to be able to believe in Peter Lougheed's promise that we have the best public education system here in the world. And they want some help with the cost of living. They're worried about the price of groceries, gas and electricity, and insurance. And we have smart, practical ways that we can help bring those things down using the Alberta Affordability Agenda. So this is not that complicated. Kyle's a parent. He gets it. He knows what parents want for their children. The priorities that Kyle holds in his own life are the priorities that people of Calgary-Shaw and the people of Alberta hold, and that is why I am so excited to be able to put this forward to Albertans to say very simply, hey, you don't have to stand for this. You deserve a better government. You deserve a government focused on you. And the Alberta New Democrats will provide that government. And the first step in doing that is to send Danielle Smith a message and tell her that we need that better government, and the best way to send that message is to let Kyle Campbell in Calgary-Shaw. So with that, we're happy to take questions. Why don't we do it like this, Tommy? I'll be a little pushy. Why don't we do a round of questions for Kyle, and then I'm happy to take questions of the day on the news of the day.
All right, we'll start with questions in the room. I'll ask you to come to the mic just so that our friends online can hear. And please state your name and outlet.
Scott Strasser from the Calgary Herald and Calgary Sun. Kyle, are you willing to share more about your diagnosis? I'm assuming remission. Can you share with where you're at with that currently?
Yeah, I crossed a significant milestone this year, 2 years in remission. My doctor said, stop coming back.
Yay!
And my hair came back, which made my wife especially happy.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I have lots of questions, if that's cool. Okay, and can you share more about your professional career background, as well as some of the qualifications you feel enable you to be a good politician?
Sure. I've worked and continue to work with some of Alberta's largest and smallest employers. I got my career in insurance, started working with the really big outfits in the province, providing best-in-class coverage for their employees. Now I work with the small employers who realistically are the backbone of our economy and who frequently pay disproportionate amounts for their insurance premiums by the factor of just being small. So advocating for small business is exceptionally important. I think most of my career is about impacting people's lives. Do they have to worry about having disability insurance, or can they get their prescription paid for? These are really small but extremely tangible items that can make or break someone's year or a decade of savings.
Throw in your education background.
Another pass for Kyle?
Sure. Additionally, I have a bachelor's degree in global supply chain management, so understanding the flow of business and the nuts and bolts of actually getting business done.
Sure. So obviously a lot of ridings will be two-horse races between the NDP and the UCP. However, we do know at least two other parties have announced candidates for this riding already. How do you feel about there being more than just a two-horse race? And maybe Naheed, maybe you want to take that one instead.
Why don't I jump in on the inside politics on this a little bit? Listen, we're happy to have anybody run. In reality, folks, there are two choices here. You either can get more of the same by electing a UCP candidate who is affiliated with the most extreme sides of the United Conservative Party. The guy running his campaign is someone well known here in South Calgary, Craig Chandler, not someone well loved here in South Calgary. But Craig, of course, represents the most extreme facets of the UCP party. Mike Derry, sure, he's a nice man, but that is too extreme for the families of Calgary-Shaw. So honestly, that is the choice people have. I wish everyone luck. I love an underdog, but ultimately, the choice that people in Calgary-Shaw have are more of the extreme policies of the UCP, not focused on what they need, and rewarding Danielle Smith for being such a terrible premier, or electing Kyle Campbell.
Great. Any other questions for Nahed or for Kyle? Do you have one for Nahed?
Sure.
Are we going to news of the day? Is there any online for Kyle?
It's still election related.
Okay.
When will you announce, Nahed, which Calgary riding you're going to contest?
Honestly, I'm waiting for the maps. So I don't want to... We are being a little bit careful in our nominations because we don't want to nominate people in ridings that may not exist. So we will hear from the Electoral Boundaries Commission right after the referendum, October 22nd. I strongly believe that we will end up running the election on the old map because I think the UCP has messed up the no longer independent process so badly that it will not stand up to legal challenge, and Elections Alberta will have no choice but to have us run on the old maps. But we are waiting a little while to see what happens. But ultimately, I will run in a competitive riding in Calgary, and we will win an additional seat for the Alberta New Democrats in Calgary.
Perfect. All right.
Hi, Mr. Nenshi. I think we're on the news of the day. What are your thoughts on Trump and Carney potentially resurrecting the Keystone XL? Do you feel that line is needed?
You know, I have very mixed emotions when I hear Keystone XL. I remember all the time I spent, including with officials of the Obama White House, advocating for that program. For a while, my face was the front page of the TC Energy employee intranet because they said I can make the case for pipelines better than anybody else. But Keystone XL also reminds me of the UCP's horrible folly. Let's remember that the UCP threw in $1.5 billion of Alberta taxpayers' money on a bet that Trump was going to win the election in 2020. And they did it in such a ham-fisted way that there was no recourse when the project got cancelled, and they burnt $1.5 billion of Albertans' money on fire. And that money could have built how many schools? It could have done what for healthcare and attracting family doctors? What could it have done to reduce people's cost of living? So while I'm pleased that it may come back, I have been burned on this one many times, but it also reminds me of the incredible, inept, corrupt, terrible financial management of the UCP, and they better not do that again.
Yeah, just to follow, Simon Jones with CTV Calgary, by the way, sorry about that. There's also intense environmental concerns around pipelines. How can we expand our infrastructure, specifically in energy, while safely exporting that product?
So I think Rachel Notley largely got it right, and our energy policy also seeks to find that balance. And the balance really has to be about being ready and future-proofing our energy industry. So here's the thing. It may not be popular for politicians to talk about climate change anymore, but the climate is still changing. And the smoke from the wildfires this summer reminds us that this is something we've got to deal with. And here's another news flash. President Trump is not going to be the president forever. So we cannot rely on today's political standards to say, wow, we don't care about the environment, we don't care about climate change. At the same time, we have to ensure prosperity going forward. So I think Rachel Notley got it right. I think that our updated energy policy and soon to be released environment policy gets it right. I think there are ways to build infrastructure to get our products to market, to create prosperity for Albertans while reducing our emissions and while making sure that we are ready for a future-proof world. The best example of that is under Rachel Notley and, in fact, Jason Kenney, Alberta created the largest renewables market in North America. People were investing billions of dollars in creating thousands of jobs, particularly in rural Alberta in renewables. When Danielle Smith put in that ill-fated moratorium, It cost us anywhere upwards of $40 billion in investment and thousands of jobs, mostly in rural Alberta. We can do it all. We can do both of those things, and we can support our energy industry while protecting the environment. And the UCP seems to have forgotten how to do either of those things.
All right, our next question comes online for Jack Farrell. Jack, your line should be open.
Okay, we don't hear you quite yet, Jack. There you are.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Just on the trade front, obviously we don't know your details. What would you think for
right.
those in terms of what would be benefit?
Jack, you're cutting out.
Jack, you're cutting out really badly, but I think I caught the question. So while they are trying to fix it, I will answer a question about Trump and trade deals, which I think is what you were asking me. So, I mean, obviously, late night last night, we got what feels like good news from the president that there may well be a deal. Of course, we're going to have to examine this critically. But we also have to remember that the UCP's position on this has been a bit ridiculous. They basically say because lots of Alberta's exports, mostly oil and gas, are not impacted by these discussions, that we don't really care, and in fact, we can give concessions to the US. That's not only incorrect from a support your country and be unified as Canadians factor, but it's also incorrect from an economic factor. Because if we are supporting things that hurt the economy of British Columbia, Ontario, Quebec, those are also our customers. And we need a strong Canadian economy to support everything. What I find ironic, my old colleagues at the City of Calgary driving by in a dump truck, what I find ironic about this whole thing is that we have heard that one of the biggest bargaining chips in this round of trade talks is American booze. And let's not forget that in Alberta, our minister went to Tennessee, toured a couple of American distilleries, came back and said, we're putting American booze back on the shelves, without getting any concessions for it, without getting any wins for it. And this round of trade talks makes us understand you got to be more sophisticated than that. You can't give up all your bargaining chips because someone took you on a tour and showed you how whiskey is made. We've got to be smarter than that, we've got to be better than that, and we've got to be cold-blooded about bargaining to ensure that we get a better result for Albertans.
All right, Jack, let's give this another try. Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I think just the last half of my question that probably didn't come through. I'm curious, what would be a sign of a bad deal for Canada here? That what would you actually be looking for once we get the text of it?
Well, I'll point out that I'm not at the negotiating table. I wish I were, but I'm not yet. But what I will say is we need a deal that outlasts the Trump administration. So we need something that perhaps has concessions to deal with the particular frivolities of Trump and the things that he is interested in, but also something that sets us up for growth forever. So for example, if we need to be able to sign to a particular level of tariff on auto manufacturing exports, for example, we need to make sure that's got a sunset clause on it, that there's an opportunity to renegotiate lower tariffs, and that those tariffs are at a level that continues to provide great jobs across Canada and particularly in Alberta. And so if we see a deal that does not support jobs, particularly in Alberta, then that's probably not a great deal.
All right, our next question comes from Rahim Mohammed. Rahim, your line should be open. All right, Rahim, can you make sure you are unmuted? Okay, we will come back to you, Rahim, because we can't hear you. Our next question, we will go to Edward, City News. Edward, your line should be open.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Edward.
Hi. So I just had a question about Alberta health cards. So
Yes.
Some people we've been seeing online have been raising the concern about Alberta health cards now having an expiry date. I know several other provinces like Ontario and Quebec have expiry dates for their health cards. So I was just wondering if you're worried about Alberta health cards now having expiry dates.
Well, I'm worried about the incredibly bungled way in which this has been implemented by Premier Smith and the UCP. As always, even when they've got a germ of an idea, they're so bad at the implementation. So what we are seeing is massive lines at the registry. We're seeing a lot of people denied their ID because, for example, Women who married many years ago but have a different last name on their birth certificate than on their driver's license have to go find their marriage certificate, which could have been issued in the 1950s. Folks need to apply to Canada citizenship for new citizenship certificates if they don't have a passport, and there's a 12 to 18 month wait to get those certificates. And the government has no contingency on any of this, which means for 12 to 18 months you could be operating without a health card, you could be operating without a driver's license, you won't be able to get insurance. This is dangerous and unfair to people who just want to try and live their lives. We've heard stories over and over again of people who are told they have to pay for their health care because their health card is expired, even though the health card has no expiry date on it. I was just talking to someone who had to pay just $60, but $60 for a blood test because when he turned 21, just very recently, somehow he got deleted from the Alberta healthcare system and no one can figure out how to put his number back in. And now he's got to go and find his citizenship certificate because his passport has a picture of him when he was a baby and it's not acceptable. So these are real problems, and I don't know what problem the government was trying to solve here. They claim that there are far more people with Alberta healthcare numbers than there are people who live in Alberta. But the reason for that is because they never had a system to take people off the system when they die. And no one was told you have to cancel your healthcare numbers when you die or when you move away. This is an internal government problem that they could have solved by fixing the system within the government. Instead, they're putting the blame and the onus and the challenge and the problems on everyday Albertans.
All right, do you have a follow-up, Edward?
No follow-up. Thank you very much.
All right, great. Rahim, we will try this again. Your line should be open.
Hello. Sorry, I forgot to unmute mute. I've got a really bad case of new dad brain, but apologize for that.
Wait. Stop. New dad?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. So
How old?
Very sorry about that. I'm a little rusty.
All good.
But Mr. Nenshi, you mentioned Rachel Notley. I believe Calgary-Shaw was a riding she was able to deliver as part of the 2015 Orange Wave ushering an NDP government into office. And I think the next election will likely be decided in ridings like Calgary-Shaw. So are you looking at this by-election race as kind of a litmus test of your ability to deliver critical swing ridings in your hometown and get the NDP over the hump in the next election?
Because it's you I'm talking to, Rahim, I'll go a little more political math nerdy than I normally would. So yes, it's obviously true that we need to deliver ridings where we had not won in 2019 or 2023. When you look at the map, there are probably 7, 8, 10 ridings that come on the list before a riding like Calgary-Shaw that would still deliver an NDP majority. That said, when I ran for leadership of this party, I said we would run an 87-seat strategy, that we needed to be viable in every corner of this province. And neighborhoods like this one, where you've got a lot of young families, where you've got a lot of concerns, and where, quite frankly, the UCP has taken them for granted, as they have rural Alberta, are neighborhoods where we have to get our message through. Now, I want to set expectations. By-elections are weird. They're low turnout. This is happening at the same time as the referendum, so there's a whole bunch of noise in the system. That said, we're working our hearts out. We've got an amazing candidate, and this is absolutely a winnable riding for us.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes. I wanted to turn to the topic of equalization. There's a little bit of chatter heading to the next mandatory review in 2029. Premier Smith, I think, has put forward the constructive idea of getting rid of that Harper-era escalator that's led to the equalization program growing, even though kind of within province inequality has shrunk and has led to weird things like Ontario, getting several hundred millions in equalization payments each year. Is scrapping that escalator an idea that appeals to you?
Yeah, well, I think we need to look at the formula in detail. And whenever people say equalization, I always like to remind people, because people don't know this, that Alberta does not write a check to Ottawa for equalization. Albertans pay the same taxes as everyone else at the same level as everyone else. We just happen to be wealthier and have higher incomes here. Well, excuse me, we used to be wealthier and have higher incomes here. This year, for the first time in generations, Alberta slipped to second place in terms of average income. But that said, we end up paying it. Then Ottawa the federal government decides how to spend that money. So if equalization went away today, Albertans would not save $1 in taxes unless the federal government reduced the tax rate for everybody. Now that said, Danielle Smith's compatriots and partners in the Harper government, including Jason Kenney, negotiated a deal on equalization that I think certainly could be improved. I think we should look at that escalator that you're talking about. We think we should look at which renewable and non-renewable energy revenues are included in the formula. And I think we need to be honest with ourselves that the goals of equalization are to make sure that everyone across Canada receives similar quality of public services, especially healthcare and education. And I believe that the equalization formula and the equalization scheme have been used for more than that and have been used for political reasons. So I'd like to see that cleaned up in a way that it's more fair to everyone.
All right, our next question is from Will Vassar, Western Standard. Will, your line should be open.
Hi, this one's actually for Kyle and Nahed, if you want to comment on it as well, maybe. But your opponent in this, when Mike Derry entered the race, he was going up against Dan McLean, who is an established politician. He's the current city councilor in the area, and it was there were some people that walked away a little surprised when Dan was defeated in it. I'm just kind of your reaction to it as well, whether or not you kind of were expecting Mike to win the nomination and what your read on it is that he was able to take down Dan McLean.
Yeah, I didn't have any insights onto who I thought was going to win, but I think the results are very telling that Calgary-Shaw is open to candidates that are willing to work hard and connect with neighbors. And that's why we've been out on the doors every single day, and we'll do so throughout the entire campaign period because people are paying attention. They really want a voice that is here in the community and is willing to speak on their behalf, and they notice when people are absent.
I will do what I'm not supposed to do, Will, and engage in a bit of political punditry on this one. We'll run against anybody, and we will defeat anybody. I will tell you that I was really looking forward to running against Dan McLean. Because I don't think Dan McLean has a particularly great record on city council. But that said, what happened here was the premier had a whole plan. As always, the premier's office thought they were playing 4D chess when they were barely playing checkers. They were going to move Dan McLean here. They were going to run a loyalist for Dan McLean's seat so that they had someone else on city council to try and control Mayor Farkas. And it all fell apart. And it all fell apart because of the extreme fringes of the UCP base. The separatists tried to run a candidate for that nomination. That candidate, unlike separatist candidates across the province running for the UCP, that candidate was vetted out and not allowed to run. So the separatists threw their support behind Mike Derry and behind Craig Chandler and behind the extreme views of both of them. So whether or not Derry and Chandler are actual separatists, they got here because of the separatists, just like Danielle Smith became premier because of the separatists. And we will not be shy about pointing out that we have a candidate who lives in the riding, who's raising his family here, who has always been involved in the neighborhoods here versus a political opportunist representing the most extreme facets of the UCP, and let people decide between those two things.
Do you have a follow-up, Will?
Yeah, for Nahed, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it yet, but last week the Alberta Prosperity Project put out they're calling it a discussion document, but it's a proposal of what some constitutional elements of an independent Alberta could look like. I'm curious if you've had a chance to look at any of it and kind of some thoughts you might have if you've had the chance.
I absolutely have not looked at it because, frankly, none of us should be giving this stuff any time or effort. That was at the meeting where we were told you deserve life and security away from, I won't repeat the racist term. So it's a document that is based in racism, coming from a guy who said that white people need to have more babies in Alberta and that the replacement theory is real. I'm not giving that a minute of my time. Albertans will vote on October 19th, and they will vote in big numbers for Canada and for the kind of nation that we built here.
All right, Jack Farrell, Canadian Press, has another question, so we will go to you again. Jack, your line should be open.
You're being so generous today, Tommy.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you. Actually, want to see if you can respond to a question Will wrote yesterday about the premier saying at a UCP town hall in Lethbridge that she thinks if the vote in October is to go the way of having a second vote, that would likely happen in the spring before the next general election. What are your thoughts on that?
So another $200 million on another vote. And the thing is, that just proves that she hasn't actually thought about it at all. I think that just slipped out. Because let's not forget that the first question was ruled unconstitutional by 2 different judges. The reason that we have this ridiculous question with 2 options is because we cannot ask the question that the separatists want us to ask. And so between the end of October and April or May, she's actually thinking that she can do full consultation with First Nations people. She's thinking that she can negotiate all the elements of a separatist deal with Ottawa. The wake-up call, that is going to take years. And I'm sure that she knows that. I'm sure that her people know that. But she still owes the separatists so much. And they're so mad at her for not giving her the question they wanted that she just pulled this out of the air. And you know what? Albertans deserve such a better government than someone who just makes stuff up in order to pander to their base, in order to pander to the people who got her there, and try and get them less mad at her before her leadership review in November. That's all this is. She's just trying to say, separatists, I'm still with you. She calls herself a fiercely proud Canadian. A fiercely proud Canadian would never do that.
All right, that's the time we have for today, folks.
All right,
thank you so much.
Everyone. And thank you, everyone.